Our village has a taboo whenever it rains. Every household bolts their doors shut, and no one steps outside until the rain stops. They say it's the day the water ghosts come ashore. If one clings to you, you'll have to die in its place. I never believed it until I broke the rule, and something strange happened the very next day. After dinner, a torrential downpour suddenly started. Grandpa and Grandma locked every door and window, burned 4 gold ingots in the corner of the living room, and lit 2 oil lamps. They reminded me again when it rains. The water ghosts come ashore. Under no circumstance was I to go out tonight. As for where this rule came from, I once overheard my parents talking. 14 years ago, it rained non-stop for half a month. A landslide blocked the village entrance, and the river behind us overflowed. Our village is surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, with only one way out, so the water had nowhere to go. Dozens of people drowned. Third Granny, who knows Taoist rituals, said it was the work of water ghosts. She performed rites for 3 days to suppress them, and ever since, this rule has been in place. No one dares break it because anyone who has ended up dead. The rain didn't stop until 8 that night. Across the street, Larry finally couldn't hold back and messaged me, "Are you going or not?" Not even a word in the group chat. I glanced at my grandparents, still watching TV, and replied, "Did you forget the village rule? We're not supposed to go out." He fired back instantly. "What a load of crap. Superstitious nonsense. You were raised with scientific education. How can you still believe this stuff?" Larry's parents bought a place in the city. He rarely came back to the village. This time he was here just to throw a party to celebrate getting into college, so he had no idea how seriously people here took the taboo. I still remember once in grade school, I tried to open the door on a rainy day just for fun, and my dad nearly beat me half to death. Ever since, I haven't dared even say the word door when it rains. When I didn't reply, Larry got mad. "And you call yourself Anna's best friend? She's leaving for overseas tomorrow, and we all promised to party till we drop. You're seriously ditching her farewell party?" Anna was my desk mate, and Larry had a thing for her. Wherever we went, she came too. Over time, the 3 of us got close. Anna came from money. We'd gotten plenty of gifts from her, and she usually picked up the tab whenever we went out. I hesitated for a few minutes and finally agreed to join the party with Larry. I'd always believed I had some kind of divine protection ever since I was little. I'd somehow gotten out of every dangerous situation. The water ghost shouldn't be able to touch me. At 10 p.m., I snuck out after Grandpa and Grandma fell asleep and met up with Larry. The moment I shut the door behind me, the oil lamps in the corner suddenly went out. Maybe it was the rain, but the air outside was colder than inside. The village was eerily quiet. Every house was sealed tight. The only sound was rain tapping on our umbrellas. We walked toward the village entrance. Anna said she had a car waiting for us there. Strangely, the closer we got to the village entrance, the lighter the rain became. Once we got in the car, the driver even asked why we brought umbrellas. He said it wasn't raining at all. Larry brushed it off. "We're in the mountains. It stops raining once you leave the hills." Localized rain wasn't unusual, but I couldn't shake an uneasy feeling. Not until we left the mountains and arrived at the bustling night market did I finally relax. Anna's house was in a luxury neighborhood downtown. It was massive and lavishly decorated. The only thing that felt off was the nameless memorial tablet in her living room. She said it was a wealth god her dad had brought home. They offered incense to it every day, and their prosperity all came from it. Her family was in real estate. Whenever her dad eyed a piece of land, he'd pray to the tablet and always won the bid. While passing the tablet on my way to the bathroom, a cold draft knocked it to the floor. Anna's dad happened to be coming down the stairs. When he saw the tablet lying on the ground, he went berserk and shoved me aside. Anna tried to help but got scolded instead. I spent all that money on your education, not for you to hang out with this kind of trash. Get them out of my house now. Anna was always the princess. It was the first time I'd seen her cry like that, tears streaming non-stop. Her dad confiscated her phone and said he'd book a flight that very night she was leaving the country immediately. The party ended abruptly. As I was leaving, Anna's dad gave me a strange, chilling look. Back in the village, a light drizzle was still falling. A cold wind blew, making me sneeze twice. Strangely, the streetlights that should have been on every 10 meters or so were all dark. When we left earlier, the villagers were still awake, so we could see the road by the lights from their homes. But now, it was 1 a.m. Everyone was asleep. The road was pitch black. We couldn't see our hands in front of our faces. We had to use our phone flashlights to light the way. Larry and I walked one behind the other. Larry was fiddling with his phone and occasionally shot me odd looks. I asked what was up, but he said nothing. Just as we neared my house, I felt a chill down my neck. I reached up. There were drops of water on my skin. Kristin, enough already. Don't push it. Larry suddenly grabbed my hand, looking annoyed. What? I was totally confused. Why do you keep grabbing my ass? You did it 3 times already. He shoved his phone into his pocket and tried to stop me. I didn't touch your ass. I had my phone in my left hand and an umbrella in my right. What was I supposed to grab you with? Telekinesis? Larry wouldn't let it go. We grew up in the same village. You're like a sister to me. How could you make a move on me? He was so certain I couldn't even defend myself. I could only swear, if I touched you, may lightning strike me dead. Larry had a short temper. When I kept denying it, he exploded. It's just us two here. If it wasn't you, what was it? A ghost? The moment he said that, we heard chaotic footsteps behind us. I whipped around and shone my phone light. A dark figure flashed across the road and vanished into a patch of bamboo. Larry and I looked at each other, terrified, and took off screaming all the way home. What I didn't know was something followed me inside. I curled under the covers, shivering. I was too scared to close my eyes. Had we really run into a ghost? I don't know how long I was out, but I eventually dozed off. When I woke up groggy, the window I had shut tight was banging in the wind. The curtain lifted and fluttered, and behind it, a shadow became clearer in the faint light. My scalp tingled. It felt like someone was standing behind the curtain, silently watching me. "Who's there?" I called out. No response. I got up to check, but out of nowhere, a pair of soaking wet, stinking hands pinned me to the bed. Water dripped from them, soaking the sheets and chilling my back to the bone. I struggled with all my strength, but couldn't touch a thing. Yet those hands were clearly strangling me. The grip on my neck tightened. My breathing weakened. My eyeballs felt like they were about to pop out. In the dark, a resentful voice hissed in my ear over and over. "I finally found you. I finally found you." Just before I blacked out, something suddenly slammed into the hands, knocking them away. I jolted upright, gasping for air. Sunlight poured in, landing right on my chest. I glanced at my phone, 6 a.m. It was just a nightmare. I wiped my sweat and was about to sleep a bit more when shrill screams rang out from outside. "Someone's dead! Someone's dead!" It was Auntie Emily Larry's mom. My blood ran cold. Could it be Larry? I sat frozen on the bed. Then I heard the front door open Grandpa, and Grandma must have gone out. "Why are you all still standing around? Go get third sister-in-law," Grandpa's voice boomed in the crowd. I opened the window and looked down. In the middle of the gathering was a swollen, pale corpse. I couldn't see the face, but judging by the size, it was someone around 5'6". Larry was 6 feet tall. Relief washed over me. Larry wasn't dead. So who was it? Just as I reached downstairs, third Granny was being helped over by a few people. The crowd made way for her. I squeezed in behind. What I saw nearly made me puke. The dead man was the village's reclusive bachelor. He'd always been skinny, but now his body was grotesquely bloated, like he'd drowned. And his mouth was crammed full of wriggling earthworms. Those worms were as thick and red as my forearm. His clouded eyes bulged wide open, as if he'd seen something horrifying right before he died. Such misfortune! I told you, when it rains, the water ghosts come ashore, living folks should stay away. He just had to go out and die, Third Granny muttered angrily as she closed his eyes. I couldn't stop shaking. I couldn't even speak. A nearby uncle kicked the corpse a few times and cursed, "So unlucky. If he wanted to die, why couldn't he do it some other day? That bastard's gonna get the whole village killed. He should have died a long time ago. Bet he was out stealing chickens again. Couldn't he die farther away? Third sister-in-law, what now? If he broke the rule back when..." "Shut it," she barked, cutting them off. Then she had someone bring paper ingots and spirit money and lit them beside the body. As the paper burned, the worms slowly shrank until they melted into a puddle of blackish red blood. The stench made me retch again. I pushed through the crowd, trying to run. Just then, Uncle Kyle burst out crying and ran to Third Granny, clutching her arm. "Please, Third Granny, save Larry." That's when I realized something was wrong. Larry, who usually loved a spectacle, hadn't come down to check out the commotion. When we reached his room, Auntie Emily was already a mess, sobbing as she grabbed Third Granny's hand. "Please look at Larry! What's happening to him?" Larry was lying in bed with his eyes shut tight, lips pale, body twitching now and then. Cold sweat, or what looked like sweat, was soaking his sheets. But it wasn't sweat. It was murky, yellowish water. Auntie Emily said after she saw the bachelor's body, she started packing so they could leave the village. But when she tried to wake Larry, he wouldn't respond. Third Granny tossed aside her cane, face turning pale. The water ghost chose him as a substitute. "He's back." At those words, both Kyle and Emily dropped to their knees. "Please, Third Granny, save Larry. He's our only son." She let out a long sigh and stuck a talisman on Larry's forehead. His trembling worsened. She took out a bagua compass and began chanting something under her breath. Seeing Larry in such a state, Auntie Emily started blaming Kyle. "This is your fault! You just had to throw that damn party! None of this would have happened otherwise! And don't forget what you did back then." Uncle Kyle grabbed her hair and shouted furiously. "You damn woman! Say one more word and I'll kill you!" The couple shoved and yelled at each other while I backed away in fear. I hadn't even noticed that Third Granny had come up to me, staring directly into my eyes. The pointer on her compass was aimed straight at me. I didn't dare stay another second and ran home, curling up on the living room couch. "Kristin!" Grandma's sudden scream made my heart leap. I swallowed hard and stood up, pretending to be calm. "What is it, Grandma?" She stood there, eyeing me warily. "Did you go out with that boy Larry last night?" "No," I denied it immediately. If Dad found out, he'd beat me senseless. Liar. Third Granny's voice rang out before she even appeared. After finishing the ritual on Larry, she came over with her bagua compass. "You're covered in yin energy, and you're saying you didn't go out?" She hit me a few times with her cane. I clutched my arms, tears falling from the pain. She ripped off the jade Buddha I wore and tossed it on the table. "This Buddha won't protect you anymore. It's raining again tonight. The water ghost will come for you." "You still think this can keep you safe?" Boys wore guanyin, girls wore Buddhas. Larry had a guanyin, mine was a Buddha. I'd worn it since I was little. It used to be crystal clear, now it was dull gray with streaks of red inside. That proved it wasn't a dream last night. Terrified, I sobbed and told Third Granny everything that had happened, word for word. Her face turned deathly pale as she listened. I didn't expect their resentment to grow stronger over all these years. Not even the ritual can save you now. My knees buckled. I collapsed, crying and clutching her leg. Please, third Granny. I know I was wrong. I don't want to die. I still have college to go to. Please save me. Grandpa looked at Grandma, full of remorse. It's all my fault. If only I had stopped them back then, the village wouldn't be in this mess. Back then? Why did they all keep talking about back then? What exactly happened? Grandma cried too, hitting me while begging third Granny to think of a way. After a long silence, she finally said, "There's only one way to save you now." She told Grandpa and Grandma to prepare black dog's blood and half a pound of glutinous rice. Before the rain started, I had to take them to the Ancestral hall. She brought over a basin of water, dipped her fingers in, and drew something in it before calling me over. As I leaned in, she flicked the water into my eyes. A burning pain flared up. "I've opened your third eye. You can now see evil things," she said sternly. "Remember, you must sleep under the Ancestral tablet table. Pour the black dog's blood around it. No matter what you hear, do not come out. If something attacks you, throw the glutinous rice at it. Hold on until the rain stops. Wait for me to come." Once everything was ready, Grandma handed me the rice and warned me before leaving. "Kristin, remember what third Granny said. The table was tall enough that I could sit up straight underneath. The red tablecloth covered most sides, leaving only a fist-sized gap. Not long after, it began to rain, and the sky grew dark. I clutched the bag of glutinous rice and huddled against the wall, shivering until 10 p.m. Eventually, I couldn't stay awake and dozed off. In the middle of the night, I was woken by a sudden knocking at the door. I sat up, instantly wide awake. Darkness wrapped tightly around me. The knocking stopped, only my shallow breathing remained. Then the knocking turned into pounding. Heavy, urgent pounding, like something was desperate to get in. Each thud made my heart jump. Though the door was locked from the inside, fear gripped me. Then the sound suddenly stopped. A foul, fishy stench drifted from the front of the table, the same stench I smelled when that thing grabbed my throat. "Let me guess, where are you hiding?" The voice was deep, mixed with gurgling water. Could it be under the table? I clamped my mouth shut, holding my breath. The ancestral tablets above me began to rattle. I could feel it. Whatever it was right above me, on the table. "Kristin, come out! Kristin, come out!" The angry voice echoed from every direction, as if it was everywhere. My head throbbed. The room spun. I couldn't tell which way was which. "The rice! Where was the rice?" I reached out blindly. My hand touched something wet and sticky. No black dog's blood outside the table. Before I could pull back, a clammy hand grabbed mine and yanked hard. "No!" I cried, clawing at the floor. That thing outside pulled harder, dragging half my body out. I grabbed the rice and flung it forward. It let out a grunt, and its grip weakened. I quickly crawled back under the table. "You're dead tonight," it hissed. I didn't know what it did, but my hand burned with pain. Drops of water oozed from my skin. I was about to grab a second handful of rice when it suddenly let out a wail and released me. Trembling, I pulled my hand back and listened carefully. Thunder rolled across the sky. I could faintly hear whispers outside. Thud. One of the ancestral tablets fell over. Then the table creaked, and more tablets toppled one after another with piercing crashes. I covered my ears, too scared to listen. All I could do was pray for the rain to stop. After a long while, the table stopped shaking. The whispers vanished. Only the patter of rain remained. The ancestral hall returned to a dead silence. I hugged the rice tighter, staying alert. A flash of lightning lit the room. A gust of wind blew up half the tablecloth. On the table was a swollen, pale face smiling at me. I screamed and fell backward. That terrifying face, it was my dad. I didn't know when I fell asleep again, but when I woke up, I was back in our living room. Grandpa and third granny were sitting beside me. I'd had a long dream. In it, someone with an indistinct face kept talking to me. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't remember what he said. Still shaken, I grabbed my phone and sent Anna a message to vent. Her dad had a personal feng shui master. Maybe he could help me. Just then, Grandma and Larry's whole family walked in. Seeing me awake, Grandma rushed over and yanked my ear, yelling, "You little brat, we told you to stay hidden, and you still stuck your hand out. If it weren't for third granny handling it in time, you'd be crippled now. It wasn't on purpose." I looked down at my bandaged right hand and was about to tell third granny what happened when a familiar face appeared behind her. "Ghost! Ghost!" I screamed, tumbling off the couch and scrambling toward my room. Just as I reached the door, a hand grabbed my collar and dragged me back. "Look carefully, it's me, your dad." I looked closer. It really was my dad, Tony. But last night, I clearly saw the water ghost that tried to kill me. It looked exactly like him. When I told them what happened, everyone fell silent, especially Dad and Uncle Kyle. Their faces went ghost white. After a long pause, Grandma collapsed on the floor, clutching her chest and crying her heart out. "Kevin, my poor Kevin, it's us who wronged you. If you want revenge, come after me. Don't hurt the younger generation. Kristin is our only child. Please, don't come for her again." Her words triggered a terrifying realization. Ever since the flood 14 years ago, every woman in the village who had a first child would miscarry the next one, no matter how careful they were. My mom had 2 miscarriages and ruined her health. Larry and I exchanged a glance. He'd mentioned his mom had lost babies, too. Every woman who married into the village over the past 14 years could only have 1 child. Because of that, more than a dozen families had moved away. I was too young to understand back then, but now it all made sense. Every strange thing in the village started 14 years ago. "Grandma, who is Kevin? What exactly happened 14 years ago?" I wanted the truth, but Grandpa, Grandma, and Dad remained silent. Third granny snapped. "At this point, you're still hiding the truth from the kids, or are you just too ashamed to say it?" Turns out, the water ghost I saw last night was my uncle. 14 years ago, a rich businessman came to our village and spent 80 million buying 5 plots of feng shui land in the mountains behind us, just to move his ancestors' graves here. Third granny always said the reason our village thrived was because of the mountain's blessings. When villagers agreed to sell the land, she tried to stop them, but who could resist that kind of money? The businessman added 10 million more and asked for 20 strong men from the village to carry the coffins. Many were working out of town, and we were short 1 man. Dad asked a friend to fill in. It poured on the day they moved the graves. The sky was ominously dark. 20 men, in raincoats, hauled the coffins up the mountain. The businessman even had 5 boxes of gold and jewels thrown in as burial offerings. After he left, Dad's friend had a wicked idea. He convinced Dad, Uncle Kyle, and a man named Aaron to dig up the treasures after the 3-day mourning period. Their plan was overheard by Dad's younger brother, Kevin. "Are you insane? Grave robbing is illegal. Besides, we should respect the dead. Just leave them be." Uncle Kevin was furious. When they wouldn't listen, he told Grandpa and Grandma. At first, they were strongly opposed too, but Dad cried, "Kristin's still little. Her mom doesn't work." I'm the only one supporting the family. Other villagers have bought homes in the city, and us? We're still stuck in this crumbling 2-story house. If I take the burial goods and add in the money from selling the land and carrying the coffin, We could buy a big villa in the city and live easy for the rest of our lives. Eventually, Grandpa and Grandma gave in, but Uncle Kevin reported them to the police on the night they acted. Aaron, on lookout, noticed something wrong and warned them to flee through a side path. Grandpa and Grandma told the police that Kevin had just finished the college entrance exam and was stressed, talking nonsense in his dreams. After tricking the cops, Dad and the others came back. When Aaron saw Kevin, he kicked him hard in the stomach. Dad didn't stop him. He even scolded Kevin. "What, you study so much your brain's fried? You called the cops on your own brother? If I hadn't gone through with this job, you wouldn't even have college tuition." Dad's friend threatened Kevin too. He said if Kevin ever did that again, he'd fight him to the death. Grandpa and Grandma had no choice but to lock Kevin in the firewood shed overnight. The next day, after Dad and the others split the loot and exchanged it for cash, they let Kevin out. Dad and Kevin were 12 years apart and already distant. After that, they didn't speak for a whole week. Around that time, Dad had just picked out a villa, then the weird things in the village started. First, giant, thick, red earthworms began showing up in the rice paddies and vegetable fields. They coiled around people like snakes and tried to crawl into noses and mouths. Third, Granny immediately sensed something was off. She organized people to get rid of them, and her calculations pointed to the mountain being disturbed. So she asked the village chief to call a town meeting. To keep from being discovered, my dad and the others dug a hole at the foot of the mountain and buried all the treasure there. Once things calmed down, Dad and Uncle Kyle went to retrieve it only to find everything gone. Aaron immediately accused my dad of keeping the money for himself and demanded he hand it over. They argued all the way back to the village. When Third Granny found out, she was livid. "You've brought disaster upon us. Those 5 coffins were filled with vengeful child spirits. That man paid such a high price for the land to use the mountain's blessings to purify their resentment so they could reincarnate. And you dug them up and stole the burial goods. You're going to get the entire village killed." But by then, it was too late. It had already rained for over half a month. The river overflowed and the floods surged into the village. My parents helped Grandpa and Grandma up into a tree, only to realize I was missing. Dad was just about to go down when Uncle, biting his college acceptance letter, held up 4-year-old me and walked through the water toward Dad. The water was already up to his chest. Dad took me and reached for Uncle, but a giant wave crashed down, and Uncle was swept away in panic by the raging river. So Uncle thinks I'm the reason he died. That's why, all these years, he's been looking for a chance to drag me down as his substitute. I muttered, staring blankly into the air. Larry asked, "Why didn't they just dig out the village entrance to let the water out?" Grandpa recalled. That flood was strange. The fire brigade's excavators dug at the entrance for a whole day and night and couldn't break through. It wasn't until Third's sister-in-law used some techniques that the water finally receded, and only then could they open up the entrance. Third Granny added, "So many people died in that flood. To keep them from turning into evil spirits, I had to perform rituals to release them. But Kevin ran away. He became a malevolent water ghost." She turned to me. "Kristin, tonight I'll reopen your third eye. Remember, when you see your uncle, stick this charm on him." She handed me a talisman drawn with Black Dog's blood. I shivered at the thought of seeing the water ghost again. "Third Granny, what does this charm do?" "It'll scatter his soul completely, never to reincarnate." That afternoon, Anna replied, saying her dad had arrived at the village entrance. When I got there, I saw my dad and Uncle Kyle beating him up. People tried to stop them but couldn't. "Carson, you bastard! Give back the money from back then!" Uncle Kyle grabbed Carson by the collar, shouting in rage. So Anna's father was the classmate from back then. Enough. If Carson's here to help, put your grudges aside for now. Third Granny scolded them while giving me a strange look. I quickly looked away and followed Dad home. Carson sincerely apologized to my dad, Uncle Kyle, and to the late Aaron. He said after this was over, he'd compensate each of them $50 million. Though the feng shui master he brought had fled, he claimed he still had a way to subdue the water ghost. He then helped Third Granny lay a ritual array around the village. After reopening my third eye, Third Granny escorted me to the Ancestral hall. She reminded me again, Kristin, Kevin is no longer your uncle, he's a water ghost out to kill you. You must get that talisman on him. I nodded anxiously. Not long after she left, the rain began pouring down, and the temperature plummeted. I pulled the quilt tighter around me. Then, I heard uneven footsteps. The main hall door creaked open, someone was coming in. I peeked through the gap and saw it was Larry's shoes. What was he doing here? Had he lost his mind? He called out anxiously. Kristin, come out quick, your dad fainted at home. What? I quickly sat up and was about to crawl out. But just as I lifted the tablecloth, something felt off. I stopped. Dad had been perfectly fine earlier. Why would he suddenly collapse? When I looked up, Larry was crouching in front of me, smiling as he reached out. But his eyes weren't their usual innocent, dull look. They were filled with eerie malice. What's wrong, Kristin? Don't you care about your dad? Come out. His voice was deep and bewitching. You're not Larry. That wasn't his voice. Horrified, I shrank back under the table. Larry had been possessed by the water ghost. If you won't come out, I'm coming in. Larry stepped over the black dog's blood and yanked my hair, dragging me out. The charm and rice had no effect on him. He slapped me twice, sending me sprawling. My mouth filled with the taste of blood. I got up to flee, but he smashed my legs with a tablet. My knees burst with pain and I collapsed. Aren't we family? Don't hurt me, please, let me go. I sobbed and pleaded, crawling backward. Family? After what your dad did to me, you still dare say we're family? Why? Why wasn't it you who died back then? Why do you get to live and be happy? I hate all of you. Larry screamed and charged at me. I was paralyzed with fear. Black mist surged from his body, and his eyes turned pure black. He beat me viciously. My insides felt like they were being torn apart. I couldn't even breathe. He choked me, growling, I'll send you down first. Soon, your mom and dad, your grandparents, they'll all join you. I struggled to scream, but no sound came. Stop! A figure crashed into him from behind. Still not gone, huh? Tough bastard. Larry stood up, annoyed. I coughed and crawled aside. The one who had just saved me was my uncle. Then who was the ghost possessing Larry? Kevin, you're still the same busybody you were back then. Larry pointed at me and sneered. Remember? If you hadn't gone back for Kristin that day, you wouldn't have died. Uncle said quietly. Aaron, wasn't my death enough? Please let my family go. So it was Aaron the lookout from that night. The water ghost that had haunted me wasn't Uncle, but Aaron. One death isn't enough. My whole family died in that flood. If my daughter had lived, she'd be as old as Kristin now, but she died. They killed her, and her dad kept the money. Aaron grew more agitated. My dad never took that money, I shouted. The moment I finished, Aaron exited Larry's body and floated toward me. His bloated, pale face was 10 times more terrifying than Uncle's. Uncle stepped in front of me, locking into battle. Little Kristin, stay hidden. Little Kristin hearing that name triggered memories I'd nearly lost. I remembered how Uncle used to bring me candy whenever he came home from school. How he'd squat down, open his arms, and call out with a smile, Little Kristin, come here. I once asked my parents and grandparents if I had an uncle. Every time I did, they'd panic and scold me harshly, saying Grandpa and Grandma only had one son, Dad, and I wasn't to speak nonsense. They didn't admit it because they were afraid Uncle would return. They all thought Uncle had turned into a vengeful ghost out for revenge. But the one who risked his life to save me back then, how could he ever harm me? And third, Granny, why did she keep insisting I use the talisman on Uncle? As they fought, Uncle started losing ground. Aaron lunged for me, grabbed my throat with one hand, and lifted me into the air. He laughed maniacally. Just as he was about to twist my neck, third Granny arrived with my dad and the others. Aaron was knocked back by one of her spells. As I fell, Uncle caught me. My dad, still shaken, shouted into the air, "Kevin, if you want revenge, come after me. Kristin is your niece. How could you try to hurt her?" Grandma sobbed. "Kevin, it's me, Mom. I'm the one who wronged you." Grandpa scattered glutinous rice everywhere. "Kevin, I disown you as my son. Just go, please go." Uncle Kyle shielded the unconscious Larry, too afraid to speak. "No, it's not, Uncle." No one listened. Uncle had to fight Aaron and dodge third Granny's attacks. He couldn't respond. Amid the chaos, Carson quietly pulled out a nameless spirit tablet from his bag. After chanting for a few seconds, Aaron, who had been beating on Uncle, was sucked into it. Carson grinned, trying to slip away. I lunged and clung to him, yelling, "Carson! You not only took the money, you turned Aaron into a ghost servant to make yourself rich! You're inhuman!" Carson panicked and pushed me off, but it was too late. Aaron burst out of the tablet, lifted Carson high into the air, and smashed him to the ground. After several bone-crunching blows, Carson lay motionless in a pool of blood. His eyes widened in realization. He looked at me, barely breathing, and pointed. You yelled on purpose!" I gave him the faintest of smiles and mouthed silently, "Safe travels, Uncle Carson." After dealing with Carson, Aaron turned toward me, but Uncle blocked him again. Somehow, Uncle's body looked more translucent now. While drawing another ritual array, third Granny handed me 2 more talismans. "Kristin, when I trap them both, stick these on them from behind." She bit her finger and chanted. With a wave, she pulled both Uncle and Aaron into the array. "Kristin, do it!" Startled, I ran over and slapped a talisman onto Aaron. He shrieked, his face twisted with fury. He looked like he wanted to tear me apart. With one final scream, Aaron dissolved into a wisp of black smoke. Uncle writhed in pain inside the array. I clenched my teeth, balled up the other charm, and threw it out the door. "Kristin, he's not your uncle anymore. He's a ghost. Stick it on," third Granny shouted, maintaining the spell. "Kristin, listen to her." Dad and Uncle Kyle urged me too. Only third Granny and I could see the ghosts. They had no idea what had just happened. They still thought Uncle was behind it all. I squatted, slowly erased the ritual lines, and stood in front of Uncle. He's never hurt anyone. He's protected me for 14 years. Third Granny was furious. "Move! Even if he hasn't hurt anyone, he's still a ghost." She prepared to cast again. "Uncle, run!" I screamed. Uncle summoned all his strength and dove into Carson's body, fleeing the Ancestral hall. "Are you crazy? He's a ghost!" Dad ran over and slapped me. My head spun, and I stumbled to the ground. Laughing, I called them fools. They had no idea everything had been part of my and Uncle's plan. Half a year ago, I kept dreaming about a man. I never saw his face clearly, didn't know who he was, but he talked to me often. Though we'd speak a lot in those dreams, I could never remember a word of it once I woke. The dreams were fragmented until I came back to the village after the college entrance exam. Then bits and pieces started coming back Anna's dad. Aaron, vengeful ghost, help me, these phrases showed up the most. So I went to Anna's house, and by accident, brought Aaron back to the village. After learning what had really happened, and combining it with the dreams, I lured Carson back to the village to make him pay. At first, I thought the water ghost trying to kill me was Uncle. But when he appeared and saved me from Aaron, I realized he was the one speaking to me in those dreams. He never once told me who he was. Looking back on all the times I'd narrowly escaped danger, I finally understood the guardian spirit I always believed in was Uncle, who had become a ghost. He protected me for 14 years. When I finished speaking, the others went from anger to doubt to shock and finally, guilt. Grandma fainted in tears. In the silence, Third Granny dropped the talisman in her hand and sighed. Enough, it was my miscalculation all those years ago. She turned to leave, but Uncle floated back in. Kristin, don't worry. Carson's body jumped into the river in front of everyone. The police won't suspect a thing. Uncle hadn't fled. He stayed behind to clean up the mess for us. Tears streamed down my face. He sat weakly on the ground, smiling. It's over. No more hauntings. Everyone in the village is safe now. As he spoke, his body began to fade. I looked to Third Granny in panic. She shook her head. His soul is about to scatter. I covered my mouth, sobbing in silence. The others snapped out of it, crying and apologizing to Uncle, one by one. Uncle struggled to his feet, squatted down like before, and opened his arms. Little Kristin, come here. Wait, I forgot. You've grown up. He stood up and opened his arms again, smiling. Now, it's okay. The youthful, handsome face from my memory slowly merged with the pale, swollen one before me. I ran to hug him, but my arms passed right through his disappearing body. Uncle? He held the hugging pose, smiled faintly, and said, Kristin, when you get to college, study hard. Be good to your family. Tell your dad and your grandparents I never blamed them. In my tear-blurred vision, Uncle turned into a strand of green mist and disappeared into the air.